Welcome to the Nerd and Normie Podcast. I'm a big film nerd, Everett.
And I'm Emerald, and I'm engaged to a nerd.
On this week's episode, we will be covering two movies.
I chose Argylle, directed by Matthew Vaughn.
And I chose Maestro, directed by Bradley Cooper. For both of these movies, we will do spoilers and non-spoilers. There'll be time codes in the description below. Let's get into it.
For this week, I chose Argylle. It's interesting.
Yeah. Directed by Matthew Vaughn, starring a whole bunch.
Bryce Dallas Howard. What's his name? Sam Rockwell. It says Henry Cavill stars in it. I wouldn't really say he stars in it, or really John Cena. Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara, Samuel L. Jackson. And yeah, mixed reviews for this one. I mean, the Rotten Tomatoes score is awful, but from what I've read, people are like going either way. They were expecting like a serious spy action movie.
Clearly,
you know what I mean?
Didn't see any trailers.
Right. And then the other half is like, can we not just have a silly movie? Why is everyone taking this so seriously? And that's kind of exactly what it is just silly, random, weird. I really liked the first half. I feel like the first third, I feel like really follows what the trailers depicted it would be. I thought it was really interesting. The second third went off the rails and they threw in a billion twists and it was just weird. And the third one brings it home with a silly little moment that made up for it for me. And I would overall just say it's like a fun at-home watch.
Yeah, it's not as good as The Kingsman.
Not even close.
Yeah, The Kingsman was truly amazing. And I think not part of the issue, but I bet a lot of people's expectations were let down because this is PG-13, and Matthew Vaughn usually does rated R, so there's usually some gruesome kills and gnarly stunts, and there's still some like decent stunt work in this movie. The action's good, but there's no bloody deaths, there's no moment of over-the-top violence, which is for a lot of people part of the fun of these types of movies. And so I don't know where that decision came from. And so, yeah, kind of weird that is the case, that it's only PG-13. I'm not saying this necessarily would have solved the whole movie, and it would have been so much better as rated R, but it would have felt at least a little more like itself, because it wants to be.
Yeah.
But they took out all the CGI blood sprays and stuff. And then, yeah, the other thing, I agree. The first third, I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe this is getting, like, so poorly reviewed. This is an absolute blast. I'm having so much more fun than, like, I thought I would. And then the middle third is really not great. There's about 50 twists and turns in 45 minutes. Yeah,
the story really is not great.
And so from a critic score, that's why I think it's so low. It might start well, but then it just keeps twisting and turning, and one good gag at the end is not enough to give it a positive review in the end, officially. And so I get it, and especially if you're a little tired of these types of movies, or, critics tend to be harsher on comedy and action and stuff that's not serious dramas. This one opens itself up to that criticism. And then again, yeah, there's one gag at the end that I was like, oh no, this isn't good. And it went so long that it became funny.
Yeah.
And then there's still another 10, 15 minutes to the movie with another 3 twists in it somehow. That I was still like, oh, like, come on, let's just wrap this up already. I'm over it.
And the twists aren't good. They're very predictable. They literally tell you this is what's going to happen, and then when it happens, they expect you to be like, what? But it's just like, yeah, of course that happened.
Yeah. Like, you either can predict it, or it happens and you go, huh, okay, and then it has no real impact on the story. Instead of focusing in on one or two like good twists like a Knives Out movie does, this one's just throwing them at you a mile a minute, and then it gets old that they're still changing up stuff. And I think there's a good movie in here. I think the issue, along with a lot of other Apple movies that have come out recently, is they keep just signing these giant checks and letting people go unchecked. Haha. And yeah, it's not going well for them at the moment.
They also used way too much CGI, and it just made the movie unwatchable.
Yeah, that was going to be the next thing I said. It's not even just that there's a lot of CGI. Most modern movies are like 75% CGI these days. It's bad. It is some of the worst CGI, and I know Matthew Vaughn is known for his over-the-top, stylized, whatever, but like, there's a difference between a stylistic choice and just not giving people the money or the time to make good effects.
Yeah, I saw a comment on one of the reviews that said it's about as good as a Spy Kids movie in terms of CGI, so just keep that in mind.
Honestly, yeah, it is not dissimilar, and that's really concerning.
Yeah.
Especially with the budget this movie had behind it. It's ridiculous. And
it has huge stars. So, like, obviously, I guess that's where their budget went.
$200 million for this movie, not just production. That's to acquire the rights to make it, to acquire sole distribution rights, all of this kind of stuff. But you'd still say that's probably around $75 to $125 million to make this movie, and it looks like this. And Godzilla Minus One was made for $15 million. And yeah, they did terrible things to their VFX artists, but I'm sure this movie did too, because nobody treats VFX artists well. And so it's like, if you're gonna make them do terrible things, at least make it artistic.
Yeah.
Or, give them good contracts and do nice things. But yeah, still, it's not great. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, do I ever want to go back to this one? There's better versions of this out there.
Yeah. Okay, going into spoilers for Argylle. This follows an author who writes a series of spy novels that are really popular. And she is on a train going to visit her parents one day, and all of these spies come out of the woodwork to basically kidnap her because they think she's telling the future or something based off the book she's writing, and they're trying to find this master key that has all of their information in it, or I guess like proves that someone is a bad guy.
Has the master file, and that's all you ever know.
Yeah,
and
the
that
master
has some pictures
file
of people we know are involved in stuff.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure in her book it's saying that the master file just proves that the leader of the spy organization is a bad guy. But oh my god, is that not a mystery? Because he's actively a bad guy the entire movie. There's not one moment where he's pretending to not be a bad guy. Anyways, so yeah, she's, solving this mystery to find this master key thing, file, whatever. And, then she turns out to be a spy, and they brainwashed her into forgetting so that she'd be an author. And instead of, just keeping her, because she was already on their side, apparently. That was another twist, is that she was with the bad guys. Instead of just letting her finish out this mission that she was already doing, they brainwashed her to forget so that she'd end up doing a mission that she was already doing. And I don't know, she was in love with the other guy. That's basically the whole movie.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, she's like picturing Henry Cavill doing a bunch of stuff, but then he kind of just disappears because apparently that was her subconscious or something.
And then he's there at the end as some guy with a mullet, which I don't know what that was.
Apparently there's an after credit scene that we walked out before, so maybe that explains something, but the person who I found out there was an after credit scene from said it was stupid and they didn't care about it. So
Yeah.
You know?
No. Oh, well.
And yeah, the thing that makes it kind of redeemable in the end, after all the stupid twists, is that they do this awful, stupid, CGI'd, explosive, colorful smoke dance sequence where they're murdering everybody. And then later she ice skates with knives in her boots across oil to murder a bunch of people, and then still ends up shooting people, even though that was the one thing they weren't supposed to do.
That was, and I would say we did not have the greatest theater experience with the
there was
people
a
around
horrible
us.
child in front of us.
And next to us, a guy was just talking through the whole thing. I don't know if you could hear him, but he literally was like, "Oh, I called that. Oh, I knew this would happen. Oh, look at this. Oh, I bet this is gonna." I'm like,
and
dude,
it's like, who
shut
didn't?
up. But anyway, he was like, "Why don't they just, they're all good shooters. Why don't they just stand up and shoot the guys who they're supposed to shoot and not shoot the oil?"
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, okay, whatever. We've written the rule that you can't shoot with the oil for fear of spark. And then it ends with her spinning, like doing an ice skating spin super, super fast, just spraying bullets willy-nilly. Like, surely that would have hit a spark somewhere.
You would think, but not in the world of Argylle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just silly and stupid, but not silly and stupid in a way that you should see it in theaters. It's not like The Beekeeper, where it's like, well, I guess it's about the same level as The Beekeeper. Same amount of funny, same amount of action. It's just fine.
It feels longer.
Yeah.
Especially that middle third really kind of drags, and the very end, there's like 10 twists thrown at you in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, there's a version of this movie, even with like what they've shot, where you could cut out a half hour, cut a couple of the twists, because everyone starts good, then goes evil, then is good, then goes evil, then is good, or starts evil, goes good, evil. And so everyone ends up exactly where they started, on like the exact same side as you expect them to be. Everybody ends up being exactly who you think they are. And so, yeah, you can do 1 or 2 twists, but to just keep flipping back and forth and having these nonsense moments where, a third thing happens that swaps what you think the scene is about. It's like, no, just
play
cut
it
around
through.
this. I don't care. And skip over, 10 minutes of characters talking about stupid stuff, and you could get to the final act of the movie much quicker and without having bored your audience to death.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know if this review makes sense, because there's so many stupid twists that I can't even express it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
What would you rate it?
Kind of hovering between like a 4 and a 5. I'd probably land on like a 5.
Yeah, I would have said walking out of the theater, I was probably more like a 6-ish.
Yeah.
But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, I would not have the energy to sit through that again.
Yeah.
Like, I love a good, funny, dumb action movie. The Beekeeper, Bullet Train from the other year.
Oh,
he
rewatches Bullet Train often. He
like,
loves
that's
Bullet
just
Train.
a great example of a movie I can turn on in the background, let the dumb action. It's funny, it's fast, it's great. This is just not that. I love the original Kingsman. I would watch that again, but not this one. So I think I will end up on a 4.
Yeah, I was about the same. Walking out of the theater, I was like, yeah, no, I mean, it was fine, but it was funny. And then the more I sat with it, I was like, it's not that funny. Not enough to make up for how
that being
bad
said,
it is.
Bryce Dallas Howard and Sam Rockwell crush it.
Yeah.
With what they are given, they are really funny, really charming, really charismatic. I really do like them in this movie. It's everyone around them and the script.
And she is just the most beautiful little person, and I love her a lot. But yeah, the rest of the movie, garbage.
Yep.
I certainly hope you dance as well as you dress.
Is Maestro, directed by Bradley Cooper and co-written by him and Josh Singer, and it stars Carey Mulligan and Bradley Cooper as Leonard Bernstein and Felicia Montealegre, and they are a very famous public couple from U.S. music history. He was a very, very successful composer and conductor and all sorts of stuff with music, and she was on track to become kind of a pretty famous actor and performer, Broadway performer and stuff, and then kind of is willing to sideline her career to some extent, and to a large extent she ends up completely kind of dropping out and then gets back into it a little bit towards the end. But anyway, that's who they are. And this movie just kind of follows their relationship. I would say it's much more about them as a couple than it is about either of their accomplishments or who they were outside of each other even, really. Like, there's almost no scenes that's not the two of them or them talking about the other person. It is very, very focused on that one thing. So if you are going into this wanting a very accurate biopic of Leonard Bernstein and his, incredible works, or any controversies and different twists and turns and craziness in his life, if it doesn't pertain to his wife, you are not going to see it. It is going to be maybe mentioned offhand, but that is what this is. It is a examination of their very weird and non-traditional marriage and relationship, and the way that despite that they still do love each other, and yet it still causes conflict.
Yeah. I went into this thinking it was going to be just a biopic about a guy making music, which is just so far from what I wanted to watch. I was dreading watching this, but having it just be like a little love story between this guy and his wife, it exceeded my expectations. I won't say I loved it.
I quite enjoyed this movie. I think I then went back because I had only seen... friends from work said it was amazing. A few critics said it was fine that I'd seen, and because this came out so long ago, I had kind of given up on trying to avoid any sort of reviews or anything. And then I saw audiences were hating this movie and thought it was really bad. And I was like, wow, this is okay, that's a shame. And then we watched it and I was like, I can't believe people don't like this.
Whereas my grandmother did not like it.
Yeah. But I read through some on Rotten Tomatoes, the user score and stuff, and it's got a 60 or 50 something %. And a lot of it was just complaining that it is not about Leonard Bernstein. And that's what they kind of were promised, is a biopic about this man, and it does not deliver on that. And fair enough, if that was your expectation, that is not what this is. However, adjust your expectations to just an examination of a peculiar relationship that happens to be real, and the acting is fantastic. The cinematography is gorgeous. I think Bradley Cooper, this is his debut directorial film. It is really, really strong. I think he did a fantastic job. There are some really spectacular shots and moments. There's a bit with the Thanksgiving Day parade that I absolutely loved. And yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm sad that it is not doing as well, putting aside any of the controversy around the makeup in this movie and what happened with Bradley Cooper and the sign-off from Bernstein's family, but also people being upset by it. Putting all of that stuff aside, the movie is good, in my opinion.
But in regards to the makeup, I will say it's one of the, following someone from when they're 25 until they're, 70?
Yeah, he died in his 70s.
Yeah, I think it does very well at making it believable that he's aging from 25 to 70 something.
They don't, at least not obviously, do CGI de-aging or aging up. It's practical.
Makeup, yeah. And it looks really good. So, in terms of the aging makeup, I think they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah. But, yeah. Ready to move into spoilers?
Yep.
All right. Moving into spoilers for Maestro. Again, there's, outside of the historical, there were two people who lived. There's not a lot to spoil other than he is a man who is bisexual, and his wife, the woman who ends up becoming his wife, they meet, and she basically says, yes, I know this is you. As long as you're discreet, I don't care. Go ahead and do whatever. I love you, and I want to be around you. And he said, I love you so much, but there is a part of me that wants to be with men, and obviously you can't give that to me, but I will still love you 100%.
And boy, do they.
They love each other, and it's really amazing. Like, I would say 99% of the time watching a movie like this that's like, oh yeah, having extramarital affairs is okay, let's show you how it could work. I'd be like, I don't think this is for me. I am very happy in a relationship with just one person. And that is not for me. But these two make it work, and it feels like they truly love each other. The performances make it feel like they're really, they do a great job, and the moments they choose to show you really show that love between them. But you also do see that it does wear on you.
And I think that's where my beef would come in, is because a lot of those shows and movies and stuff that would be about someone who's like, I think I'm in love with two people. I'm like, no, you're not. Shut your face. And he doesn't. He loves his wife with his entire heart. He is so in love with his wife. And then he has occasional hookups with men, and it doesn't like delve deeply into those. It's just like once in a while there's a man he goes off with, he comes back, and he stays very like consistent with showing his wife attention. But the issue comes when he has lived this whole life not having, a consistent relationship with a man, and he wants that. And so once he starts leaning on that and having a man around more and more, he's bringing him home.
And it's the same guy.
It's the same man.
Over and over.
That's when their marriage kind of falls apart a little bit. But yeah, then she gets cancer and they come back together. So...
yeah, and I think I can also see, like, some people might think it's pulling a few punches, and that, yes, he starts bringing the same guy, like, home. He invites him to their family home for the weekend. He invites him to his premiere of his new composition, and he's holding his hand instead of hers up in the balcony. And I think it maybe could have gone a little harsher on him for behaving that way to her, and showed a bit more of how, you've had this agreement, this arrangement, and then, she kind of starts to be like, hey, like, I know I said this was okay, but you're starting to kind of push it, and he just kind of talks his way out of it. And there's only like one or two scenes that really show that dynamic, one being the Thanksgiving Day parade scene, which is fantastic. She finally is like, enough is enough. He comes home late for Thanksgiving, and they go into their, like, a private study or whatever, and start having a screaming match at each other, and really, really well done. And then it ends, there's like floats going by slowly in the background, and it ends with like Snoopy just drifting in the background, and all their kids outside are going, Dad, Mom, come look at Snoopy, oh my gosh. And they're having just like poured their hearts into this
like an end of marriage fight.
Yeah. But then they do end up kind of coming back together and being with each other. And then another area it does kind of pull its punch is then he is seen after her death and stuff, still interested not just in men, but in very young men, like students he's teaching to be conductors he's then having relationships with. And I think they maybe... and again, I don't know how you go into that in this movie, because that's not what this movie is. It is their relationship. But I can see people who want to have those kind of like biopics that actually dredge up stuff about the character and stuff would be disappointed that this is not harsh on him in that regard.
I also would not call it Maestro, because that's not really what it's about. I would have called it something else. Like, I think that's where the people got angry, is because they're coming
Lenny
to see
and
him.
Felicia or something like that would have been a better name for this, because, it is... I mean, I would say Carey Mulligan steals the show. She is fantastic in this.
Yeah. Bradley Cooper is pretty good.
Yeah.
She is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But she is in everything because she's a star.
Yeah. But... yeah, so maybe it's not quite as harsh, and yet it's produced by the Bernstein family, and they signed off on everything that was done. So yeah, they probably didn't want their parents being completely dragged through the mud. So take that at, as you will. But still, as an examination of this particular relationship, I thought it was quite interesting.
So what would you rate it?
I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10.
Okay. I think once we had just finished it, because I had so low expectations going into it, I would have given it like a 7 because it exceeded the expectations. But sitting with it, thinking about if I'd ever rewatch it, whatever, I'd probably give it about a 5 as well. Sorry.
Harsh. All right, that is Maestro.
If summer doesn't sing in you, then nothing sings in you. And if nothing sings in you, then you can't make music. Something she told me.
Hello, I'm Lenny.
Hello, Felicia.
All right, thank you for listening to our episode this week. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Nerd and Normie, and tune in every Monday for a new episode.
And if you're listening on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if you're on an audio platform, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us out.
Thank you.